Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for our part two of our AI workshop. Today, we're talking about business strategies for AI adoption. And I want to thank Pam Clark from Clark Communications for sponsoring our series. And I'm going to introduce you to Mia, who is the co-founder and CTO of VentureFactory.AI. Mia Kynadi is a data scientist, entrepreneur, and early-stage investor with a track record of co-founding tech companies in India and the U.S. She's the co-founder and CEO of VentureFactory.AI, a global AI venture studio, and also leads Beyond Z LLC, a U.S.-based digital transformation firm. As managing director at VentureWay, she drives global tech investments and startup ecosystem growth. An active angel investor, she serves on the board of governors at Sparks Angel Network. Mia holds advanced degrees and certifications in AI and data science from SUNY Buffalo, MIT, Stanford, and Harvard. She is the founder of Chaya Foundation, which supports education for underprivileged children in India, and is establishing the Getai Foundation in Geneva to promote global empowerment through AI. So thank you, Mia, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Margie. It's a pleasure to be here. Great to see all the familiar faces from last time and some new faces as well. So let me get started by sharing my screen, and we'll
Oh,
get...
and let me say one other thing. If anyone has questions, please put them in the chat so Mia can address them after the presentation.
Thank you. You see my slides?
Yes.
Great. So this is workshop 2 in the 3-part series. We're going to talk a little bit about business strategies for AI adoption and how AI can help formulate your business strategy. In today's agenda, we have AI's role in business strategy. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between traditional analytics and big data analytics. We're going to talk about predictive analytics for smarter decision making. How can you drive smarter decisions for your business using predictive analytics? And then AI-driven market analysis and competitive intelligence. And then we'll go into a couple of case studies from companies that have been using AI to great benefit. So diving right in, AI's role in business strategy. So what AI can do, especially the language models, the chatbots that we have, what they can allow you to do is quickly brainstorm business ideas. So normally when you have a brainstorming session, you're throwing ideas and you're getting feedback from your team members who are bringing their experience into that discussion. And what a language model allows you to do is draw on the collective experience that's contained on the web, in digital books, in research papers, etc. Essentially, the experience that is contained in everything that AI model is trained on. So, we've seen, in sci-fi movies, we see these assistants that are, throwing out ideas and helping refine ideas. We are sort of on the cusp of that reality today. And what this allows you to do is quickly iterate through variations of strategies to consider feasibility. And then if you talk to, ChatGPT versus other, maybe Gemini, Meta AI, you talk to different language models, you get a different perspective as well. And I like to stress the fact that language models are essentially just predicting the next word, but they are so good at it. The training is so good that they do give out useful information. How innovative are AI models? So what is seen is that because everything that an AI model gives out is a function of its training, they are excellent at combining ideas from different domains. So they are excellent at suggesting or thinking through new ideas that are based on work that has been done in different fields. And in entrepreneurship, we do see that a lot of innovation happens at the intersection of different fields, different domains. What AI models are not great at doing is coming up with things that have never been done before. If you can imagine the invention of electricity before it was a reality, if you can imagine the suggestion of the internet before it existed, those are things that had never been seen by the world before. And those are the kind of ideas that AI models are not great at coming up with. But because they have a wealth of training data, they are great at combining ideas from different domains. And very often in entrepreneurship, that is how new ideas are arrived at. How can AI help in business strategy? So one is that it can give you data-driven insights. There is a lot of value in instinct and intuition, and you can back that up with data-driven insight from your data. It can uncover drivers of profit and growth that are existing in your current business. It can help you to analyze the effectiveness of current approaches. You can monitor your business real time, which is very valuable. AI can also help you ask the right questions. Just by having a better view, a viewpoint into your data, it helps you to ask the right questions and thereby arrive at interesting strategy points. How do you spot AI opportunities in the business? So one is to look at what are the outcomes that would impact your business the most. It is always better to start from the why. Why would you approach a certain solution? Why would you want to take on a certain problem? And then figure out how. And then you look at what are the relevant data points. Very often for AI currently, repetitive tasks that have well-defined outputs are great candidates for AI because then you have a wealth of training data and you can use that to train the AI models. Another thing to look at when you're looking at what may be ripe for AI is what is the risk involved in incorrect predictions. You can imagine that in healthcare, if you're going to predict a certain diagnosis, then you wouldn't want to put it out there without a doctor having seen it as well, because that's a high risk. But in terms of Netflix, for example, recommending a certain movie, that's low risk. So you want to think of if you're starting out your journey, you would perhaps want to consider lower risk initiatives first, and then work your way up to higher risk initiatives in your business. So this is looking at AI impact by industry as a percentage of the total impact that analytics can bring in. And you can see right up there is retail, um, especially because of e-commerce. There's a lot of data in how customers engage with content, what customers buy, what customers are interested in, and it's ripe for analytics. So retail is an industry that will be impacted a lot by AI methodologies. Transport and logistics is another one. And I mentioned it in workshop one as well, how AI can be used to prevent disruptions in the supply chain, to improve logistics, and it does impact costs in a big way. Automotive and assembly is another area. Predictive maintenance we spoke about in manufacturing. That's one. There's robotic process automation. So a lot of impact that can come in that field as well. Banking, high-tech industries are also going to see a lot of impact in AI because they are already in the tech space and they have a lot of data and they have the tools to implement AI. So we're going to talk a little bit about what differentiates traditional analytics and big data analytics. And we'll talk about what is big data to begin with, right? Essentially, it is data that exceeds the capacity or capability of conventional methods. We're talking about terabytes of data, huge data sets that we're collecting. The reality today is that almost all businesses are collecting data, and they have a wealth of data at their disposal. So big data necessitates storage to accommodate. So you do need to look at how are you going to store this data? You need tools to visualize and analyze this data. Because when you're talking about high dimensional data sets, there could be hundreds of dimensions. You cannot visualize it easily. And there are tools that help you narrow down the dimensions into the features that are most relevant so that you're seeing the data that affects your outcome the most. It's very important to visualize, to be able to visualize data, because that is where a lot of insight comes from. And you also, of course, need the software, the tools to process big data. What is the difference in analysis from traditional analytics versus big data analytics? Traditionally, uh, we have a question to begin with, and then you have a hypothesis. For example, in drug discovery, you're saying, will this drug help this condition? And then you have a hypothesis. You're saying, yes, it will. And then you go and collect the data. You run a clinical trial, and you have a control group and a test group, and then you arrive at an answer by collecting your data. So the process starts with the question, and then with the hypothesis. It's very hypothesis based, and you collect data based on the hypothesis that you're trying to clarify, and then you get an answer. However, in big data analytics, in today's age of data, it is driven by the data. So you start with your data, you run exploration on it, visualization on it, different types of analytical approaches, and you see what that data throws up. What are the correlations in the data? What are the things that you may be able to predict? What are some interesting statistics on that data? And from there, you draw actionable insight. So you don't have a condition that you're starting with or a question that you start with, but you're starting with your data, and you let your data drive action. So big data allows you to ask new questions. It's when you explore your data that you realize that some questions can be answered with that data. It asks new questions. It may allow you to answer existing questions in a better way because of correlations, or you might see clustering similarities between users that you didn't realize existed. You might see underlying, correlations that you can use in your business, in your approach to business. So when you're analyzing data, when you have big data and you're doing analysis on it, the workload, surprisingly, is a big part of the workload is in preparing that data, right? First, you would acquire the data, as in you're collecting data from your customers or from your business, and you have to make sure that it's correct. You have to do some error checking. So that is number one, acquisition and verification. That takes up some time. But the most amount of time and cost is taken up in preparing the data, right? You need to make the data in a format that AI models can use for training. And that is what takes up the bulk. So even when you're budgeting for your data, you need to keep in mind that data preparation takes up a lot of time, takes up a lot of cost as well. Analysis takes up time and effort, and then communicating, right? You need to be able to communicate the insights that you're getting across the organization to the people that need to make the decisions, that need to make the changes. So roughly, this is how the workload is split up. So once you have your data and you're going to train an AI model for your business, what is the life cycle of an ML project, of a machine learning project or an AI project? So step one, if you're going from the top down, you would plan the project. You would choose the metrics that you're going to decide whether the project is successful or not. You would need some baselines, as in if you're going to use an AI methodology to do a certain task, it's necessary to have a baseline in place to evaluate how your system is doing. Very often, human performance is a good baseline for tasks that humans do. So that is your baseline, and then you're going to see how your AI model performs. And then you need the code base, etc. Once you do the setup, you have to do your strategy. You have to collect the data and label the data or prepare the data, right? Labeling comes into place when you're doing supervised learning, but there are also others, unsupervised learning methodologies. So that's the next step, the data step. And then you're going to train your model, debug the model. So you would need to make a model choice. You need to train it. You need to debug it. You need to improve the results. So use a lot of iteration there. And then finally, you would deploy the model and you would do testing on it. But you can see these arrows on the side that are going from the boxes up. That highlights that an ML project is very iterative in nature, right? It is when you get to perhaps the ingestion stage of data, collecting your data, you may realize this particular type of data is not possible to collect. Then you need to go back to the drawing board and redefine your problem to be able to use other kinds of data. Or, you may collect your data, you may start training and debugging, and realize that you need to label your data in a different way for the model to perform well. So then you go back to preparing your data and you make those changes. Again, after deploying, you may realize that the metrics you chose for success don't translate well in a real world setting. Or you may realize that the actual data that you're seeing in model usage is a little bit different from the data that the model is seeing at training. And then you go back to the drawing board. So ML project development is very iterative, and you need to factor that in when you plan, when you budget time and cost. It's very iterative in nature. There's a lot of going back and forth before you hit that sweet spot and before it works well. How do you go from analytics to decision making? How do you actually impact your business? So that's what we're going to look at. Smarter decisions. AI allows you to make smarter decisions because it gives you insights from your data. So it's forecasting the future based on what it has seen historically. So you can plan based on your data. Data-driven planning, also better risk management, because you can see what disruptions may be coming, see what the market may be looking like, what you need to be prepared for. So those are the kinds of things that AI can help you do better. But how do you go from predictions to better decisions, right? So wherever there is correlations in your data, you can make good predictions, right? But correlation and causation are different things. Just to highlight that, for example, there is, it was found that students who have music, who are gifted in music, do better academically, right? But then, given music, does giving them music lessons, does giving a child music lessons make them better academically? So, is music a causative factor for academic performance, or is there an other underlying factor? So, it was found that there are people who are gifted. Who do well at music and at academics, but studying music doesn't necessarily translate to better academic performance. So that's the difference between correlation and causation. So whenever you have correlations in your data, you can use that to make accurate predictions, right? But you need to understand causation to be able to take a decision. So how do you go from a prediction that a model is making to the right decision? For example, you use your sales data and you say that a certain product a user is likely to buy if you make a certain change. There is a correlation there. That is what the model is predicting. But what is the right decision to take? To understand that effect, to understand cause, the only way to go about it is to act. So you need to compare action versus no action. So essentially, you need to have holdout sets, right? You run a sort of pilot program on a part of your users, a part of your users base. You don't give them the others that same effect, and you see how the two perform. For example, in the drug trial example, you give some people the actual drug, you give the holdout, the control group, a placebo, and you compare the results, right? So to really understand the impact of a decision, you do need to take action and compare that action versus no action. So there is an inevitable cost involved in that process because one is you need to run the experiment, and two, assuming that the drug, for example, in our example, assuming that the drug does give benefit, then there is a holdout set, a control group who didn't get the drug. Or in a consumer space, if there is a product that will sell well and people are buying, there is a holdout set who were not exposed to that product. So there is a small cost involved, but that is worth doing. The experiment is worth doing. So how do you experiment with different options? Assuming that your AI model has predicted a certain course of action, how do you compare action versus no action? One standard way of doing it is A/B testing, where you have one group who is exposed to a certain outcome and one group that is not, and you compare the results. A slightly different one is multi-arm bandit and contextual bandit algorithms, which are also where you expose different groups to different scenarios, but based on incremental results that are coming in, you modify. For example, if in a drug control example, if you see that the drug is beneficial, then you move more people into the test group. You expose more people to the drug. This is not done in drug testing typically, but in non-pharmaceutical, non-drug space, where you're talking about consumer goods, multi-arm bandits are often used. E-commerce websites use them all the time, where some of the users are recommended certain product. And if they see that users are buying, then more users are exposed to it before waiting for the complete results of this test to come out, so that the cost of not exposing some users to a product that they're likely to buy is reduced. This is some more details on these algorithms, but I'm going to get into it only if there are questions in the end. I'm happy to get into the details of it. So what drives prediction accuracy? When you're building an AI model, when you're training an AI model for your business, what drives prediction accuracy? One is data quality. AI models very much are garbage in, garbage out systems. So if you have data that is not accurate or data that is erroneous, the model is not going to be able to predict accurately. So data quality is one. Data quantity is another. Based on the number of parameters that the model has, it will need a fair amount of data to be able to really be trained well. Model choice is another that drives prediction accuracy. Different types of problems require different types of models. There are models that work well for certain types of scenarios. So making the right model choice is important. And then domain expertise, really understanding what are the relevant features for a certain problem, what are the number of features that you need to be able to predict a proper outcome. So domain expertise has a lot to do. If you think about, for example, diagnosing X-ray images, that is an area where AI models have shown a lot of success. But you do need a doctor to first come in and say, these are the things that we look at in an X-ray to be able to diagnose what the diseases are. Similarly, in your business, you will know what are the things that are relevant for a certain outcome. And that is very much a part of the puzzle. So when often given budgeting constraints, and when you're at a point where you have trained a model and you now want to improve performance, which is better? Would you invest more in data, or would you invest more in another model? Better algorithms or better data, which is more important? Definitely goes without saying both are important, but very often high quality data has the most impact. So if you had to make a decision between getting better data and experimenting with another model, get better data, if there is a constraint on that. So now we're going into AI-driven market analysis and competitive intelligence. How can AI solutions help in that regard? Competitive intelligence. So AI helps you to understand what your competitors are doing at scale, right? You can monitor online data to understand competitor pricing. You can monitor online data to understand what products the competitor has out there. You can analyze and summarize market data, right? You can use public financial data and customer feedback to benchmark competitive performance. You can, analyze the sentiments that reviews have to your customers' products. And the thing with AI is that it helps you do this at scale. You can have a human go and look in online, look at a few websites, look at a few reviews, but AI allows you to do it at scale. Really mine all the data that is out there and draw insights from it, which is very hard to do with human resources. So it is the scale that AI brings in and the insights from that scale that really help. Nike has been using AI for competitive intelligence to understand what competitor pricing is, what shoe models the competitors are coming out with. So really, AI helps you to understand your competitors at scale very efficiently. Market analysis for your own products. Again, you can mine data from social media, from news, from e-commerce platforms to really look at what your customers are talking about, what are they looking for, and what are they likely to want in the coming months, what products or services are likely to trend and when. The anatomy of a trend has changed because of this age of data and this social media, because earlier it took more time for things to become popular and for products to trend, and then trends lasted longer. But today, because of how connected people are, because of social media, trends come in and go much faster. So it's great to use AI to understand what are the upcoming trends, what should you be ready for, and you can also analyze the nature of those trends to see, are they going to last? Should I really ramp up for this one? Should I sit this one out? So you can really analyze your market at scale. Again, it is the scale that changes the game, because you're able to really analyze data from a vast array of sources, and draw insights from that to be able to prepare yourself as a business for what the landscape is going to look like. Product market fit. This is again something that AI can help you analyze very deeply. One is, so I've got this image, execution capabilities is, what your business is currently capable of doing. And AI can help you understand better what your core business strengths are and abilities are. What are you good at doing? You can really analyze the data to see what you've been doing well. What are you good at doing? What are your strengths? The other circle is the potential products, right? What are the products that you could offer? Given your strengths, what are the products that you could offer the market? Again, AI can help you ideate and strategize on that front. The third circle is market needs, right? What are customers looking for? What is going to sell? What are the likelihoods that if you put a product out there, someone's going to buy it? Again, like we just spoke, AI can help you mine online data to really understand what people are looking for. And where the execution capabilities, your potential product portfolio, and the market needs meet, that is your true product market fit. And using AI and methodologies, you can draw more insight into each of these areas to really analyze product market fit, so that you know from a strategic perspective where you want to take your business. And now we come into a few case studies about companies that have been using AI to great benefit. The first one is Klarna. I mentioned Klarna last time as well, and we're going to get into a bit more detail today. Klarna is, again, a financial services company. It's a buy now, pay later service provider. They provide payment processing for the e-commerce platforms. What Klarna did is it integrated generative AI very early on into the shopping experience, into customer service, for their employees, right? So they have a customer service chatbot, which we sort of touched upon last time, reduced wait times, higher volumes of calls serviced. That's what they've been seeing. So Kiki is their AI assistant. It's powered by OpenAI. What Kiki allowed them to do is multilingual customer service, and customer service calls essentially can be stratified into simple calls, more complex calls, and so on. And the very simple ones, it makes a lot of sense to have an AI take care of for you. Someone calls and says, "Have you received my payment?" An AI chatbot can take care of that and really reduce the workload on the human workforce. This AI assistant also is trained to give information to foster healthier financial habits. It gives real-time updates about balances and payment schedules. So what Klarna found that 2/3 of their entire customer service calls, about 1.3 million conversations per month, are now handled by this AI agent. But around last year, the CEO said that it is doing the equivalent of 700 full-time human agents. Available in 23 markets, available 24/7, communicates in more than 35 languages. So those advantages are hard to beat. Connected data. So in this journey, the customer service agent is one of the AI solutions that they use. But more importantly, they have made an organizational change. They have connected data from across the organization. Last time we spoke about the centralized data repository, bringing data from across the organization into a central repository. And that is what Klarna has done. So they've removed their siloed data architecture, and it has allowed them to link people to projects, documents to teams, processes to outcomes, and that is where the real insights are available. When you're able to see across domains, across departments, to really analyze what is affecting your outcomes. Company-wide AI adoption, right? They took on an AI, generative AI, and made it available across the organization. And they helped their employees to be able to use it. They gave their employees the freedom to be able to use and get used to using AI tools. You do need to enable a bit of that to also address the fear that is there around using AI. So you need to be able to let your workforce experiment and get a feel for it. And what they've seen is improved productivity. They've seen professional growth. They have their communications, marketing, and legal team using these generative tools very well and a lot. So I mentioned there was a $40 million profit in 2024. First quarter of 2025, they've seen 15% revenue growth, and they've attributed a lot of it to AI, right? So clearly AI is making great impact, but this is from 5 days ago. So it says Klarna reverses on AI, says customers like talking to people, right? Where do we place this in our AI landscape? And so remember I talked about iteration earlier, right? A lot of AI is about putting it out there, looking at how it's doing, and iterating, right? And this headline was a bit sensational, but that is not the whole truth. There's been further interviews with the CEO where he clarified that Klarna is still going full steam on AI. It's just that in their customer service sector, they have realized that there are some calls that do need human agents. So last year, Klarna paused their hiring, and it made waves. They're saying, it's going to replace the human workforce. Today, their stance is that it's augmenting the human workforce. They still do need humans, but then AI takes care of a lot of calls as well. So the business has grown, and that has been attributed to AI, but there are still a lot of things that they do need humans for. So for those businesses that are considering using AI for customer service, one key insight is that it needs to be easy for a person calling in to reach a human agent, right? So anything that the AI can handle, it should handle, but the person calling in needs to know that anytime they want to, they can reach out to a human. And that makes a lot of difference, right? So to throw light on the overall business, this is also from, I think, 3-4 days ago, where they're saying their revenue per employee soars to nearly $1 million, thanks to AI efficiency push. So here you see that they're not reversing on AI. They are still very bullish on AI, but they are learning as they go. And I want to draw back your attention to the image about the ML project lifecycle, where it's all about iterating. You do need to go back and iterate till you find the sweet spot. So very often you decide to use AI, you've gathered and prepared the data, you've trained your model, you've deployed it, and you have great confidence in it, but sometimes you have underwhelming results. But the key is to know that, that's not the end of the journey. And that's not where you want to say, AI is not going to work for me, but rather you deploy, you monitor, you do user testing, you modify as needed. Maybe you need to get more data. Maybe you need to do model training. You do what is needed. You deploy again, and that's where you have impact. So I think there are two loops that are ongoing in AI development. One is a very fast loop. You need to iterate and improve your model very fast. And once it gets to a certain level of performance, you deploy it. But there's also a slower loop once deployment happens, where then you're looking at how is it, performing in the real world, and you're also again iterating and modifying there. That's a slightly slower loop. So in the initial development, there's a very fast iterative loop that should go on, and once you deploy, there is still also a lot of modifying and learning that needs to go back into the product development before you get that real impact in the business. So the next case study is from BMW, AI for strategy, right? BMW has been using analytics and AI in a very big way. So they've been using predictive AI to analyze their global sales, to see what are the local trends, to see consumer behavior, and to also tailor their products and features. They have a lot of inventory, as you can imagine, and they've been using AI to optimize their inventory. So they have superior product market fit. They have reduced overstocking. And others, they've used generative AI to really empower their workforce and to improve efficiency, right? They have a group AI assistant that their employees can use. They've also empowered their employees to build their own apps using generative AI. So they are a platform company. They have a lot of data that they collect. They have their own data sets. They have in-house AI capability, but they've also empowered the workforce to look at scenarios where they think generative AI tools can help them, and then to build apps that will do that very quickly. So that boosts productivity, that fosters innovation. And in this vein, there is also, it's important to think about when you should build AI in-house and when you should buy. You don't always need to build all the solutions in-house. You don't always need to outsource it, but it's good to use a combination of both. Operationally also, the insights that the AI systems that they've drawn from their data have allowed them to really streamline their operations. So, and they have a very strict data lifecycle management. As you can imagine, they collect a lot of data, and you can't really save all the data that you collect, because that would be, from a budget perspective, that would be formidable. So you really do need to think about from the data that you're collecting in your business, what do you really want to save? And sometimes that changes, right? You save some data today, another use case comes up tomorrow. You may need to save some other data. You may need to start collecting other data, and that's okay. So it's an iterative process, but it's very often not feasible to save everything that you're collecting. But the idea is to have a close eye on it, so that you do save what you need, you throw what you don't need, and when that changes, when the use case changes, you change your data strategy accordingly. Also, life cycle management. You've been saving some data, but you need to look at who is using that data, what use case is that data fueling, and what impact does that data have on your business. And if there's, data that you've collected that you're not using at all over a given length of time, or it's not driving any use cases that have real impact in your business, then you really want to look at stopping saving that data, perhaps in favor of other data that could be more useful for you. So here, BMW also links use cases to data assets so that they know what use cases each data set is driving. They're able to analyze and measure the value of a data set. And also, they've prepared their landscape for AI agents. I mentioned AI agents last time, where you have language models that have access to external tools, and this access works through APIs, which is a sort of programming interface. So the applications that you have in your organization need to be need to have those APIs that the language model can use. So you do need to manage your application landscape in a way that you can have AI agents, right? And random RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, that is a very popular methodology today. We talked about knowledge-based management last time, where you have language models that are answering questions based on documents in your organization. That is an example of retrieval augmented generation. But for their in-car assistance, BMW found that the latency that RAG systems have doesn't work when you're driving a car and you have a question. You need an answer immediately. So they're looking at continuous pre-training of models. So they're doing a lot of things. They have built the framework that allows them to consider different solutions to iterate fast. They collect data, they have very strict data governance, and that has been driving their organizational strategy. Some early wins that BMW had, one is data centralization. Again, it's a theme that pops up in most companies that have been using AI. So they consolidated their vast data into a data hub, and they started doing it as early as 2017. They have very strong data governance. They have data stewards who are responsible for the quality, the security, and data compliance. And they have a business-driven strategy because they are saving data, they are doing analytics on it, and they've made it possible for their workforce to access those analysis. They've become a business that is driven by data, right? So the impact, just to highlight some of the key results again, improved product market fit and reduced inventory. So they're able to understand what their customers want, what they need to be prepared for. So they're able to reduce inventory. They're able to put out better products that their customers really want. Enhanced customer satisfaction, right? Because their customer service is now powered by data, powered by AI. They're able to do better customer service, which actually fosters brand loyalty because customers feel that their needs are being met. Increased operational efficiencies, as I mentioned, and accelerated innovation. So they're streamlining as they go. So they're running a very tight ship. They monitor their data very closely. So I have one more example, which I thought I'll decide to get into if time permits. Moderna is a company I think that is close to you guys. based out of Netherlands. So Moderna is also a company that integrated AI and analytics into their business early on. Again, they have a integrated digital library of data, right? So no silos, all their data is in one place. Also, top-down strategic intent. This is also very important. The biggest hurdle to AI adoption is often not technology, but culture. So it's very important to really communicate top-down the strategic intent around AI adoption in your business to show up its value early on, and to allow employees to engage and to build trust in the system. So Moderna also has a very strong top-down strategic intent that is communicated across the company. They're cloud native, meaning that they have a lot of data on the cloud and that's easily scalable. And AI is integrated into their core business strategy across the board. So from customer service to product development, knowledge management to legal, and so on. They've spent a lot of time and effort in employee upskilling. They have an AI academy where employees go regularly to get upskilled. They're empowering employees. They have easy to use tools for quick integration, and their employees have the freedom to build custom GPTs, generative models that they think will really benefit their daily tasks. They have the freedom to build those custom GPTs. And that's something we saw with Klarna as well. So they have also a lot of strategic partnerships with other players in the industry. So Moderna partnered with OpenAI early on. They have custom-built AI chatbots. They gave their employees ChatGPT Enterprise access so that they could build custom GPTs. So in the 2 months, in around 2 months, they had 750 custom GPTs in use. That was as of April last year. As of today, they have more than 3,000 custom GPTs in use. So that is the sort of freedom that the employees are given, and they are seeing a lot of productivity from it. They had a GPT pilot called Dose ID early on, which used to review and analyze clinical data to see what dosage might work in terms of vaccines. It's able to visualize large data sets, so it really impacts analysis. Another partnership that Moderna has with is AWS, Amazon Web Services, and they have this OC3, Omnichannel Cloud Contact Center, is a solution that AWS has that allows you to do across-the-board customer service and also analyze your customer service. It really allows you to offer the ideal customer journey through the organization. Better experiences for all stakeholders, not just customers, but also other providers, policymakers, for everyone. So the OC3 is a channel that they've been using from AWS. It allows personalized services. So yeah, that is it from me for today. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the questions. Let's see.
Thank you so much, Mia. You can put your questions in the chat, or you can just ask Mia. We have a small group here. So I know a lot of that was over my head, Mia.
Was it?
But that's me. I do have a question. How do people create their own chat box? I mean, where do you start to create your own?
Chatbot. So you have to start with existing conversations, right? If you have a customer service arm already, then you sort of record those conversations and you use that to train the chatbot. So if you see like a ChatGPT, for instance, it is conversational already, right? You can ask a question and have a human-like response already, but then you want it to know your business. So that is where you would fine-tune the model to know what is relevant for your business. What are the kinds of conversations that happen in your business? Another one is is domain-specific terms. So there may be, abbreviations and terms that are very specific to your sector, to your industry, that the chatbot may not be aware of. So those are the kinds of things that get done in fine-tuning, right? And you can create custom GPTs that you give access to some documents so that the GPT is familiar with terminology from your business.
I do like what you said about Klarna. How many times have we all got on trying to get a hold of someone and you're stuck in the thing and you're yelling, customer service operator?
Yeah.
It's so
Okay.
frustrating for people. So
Yeah.
I like that these companies are using, you know, this technology, but at the same time, they do have to keep the customer service.
Yes.
Okay,
Um,
here's a question in the chat. Two real-world case studies are supposed to be discussed in today's session. Are we done with these cases or I had missed them? Well, we talked about Klarna, BMW, and Moderna.
So in addition to what you were saying about Klarna, very much at the heart of innovation is the human element, right? So you do need to keep that very squarely in the picture. And in customer service, there are a lot of tasks that are very simple, and customers do appreciate expediency in those. If you just need to you have a quick question, you want to know about your account, and often when it's a human operator, then there is that time for them to access your records and look into your this thing and give you the answer. But an AI agent can do it much faster. So those kinds of responses AI does very well. But there may be more complicated scenarios where you do want a human agent. And it's the idea is to make that access easy. Yeah.
Well, I know next week we're going to be talking about AI for marketing and sales growth. So I know a lot of people are very interested in that.
Yeah.
So I look forward to that. Pam do you want to ask it yourself, Pam, or do you want me to just read it out of the chat?
Hang on here.
There you are.
You mentioned using AI to assess what your company does well and where improvements could be made. How would you recommend doing that?
So it comes from the data that you collect on your customers. You have, for example, you have marketing material. You also measuring the number of people who are engaging with that material. You make a change in your marketing material, and then you look at how customers are engaging with that. What is the click-through rate, for example? Or if it's a sales platform, what is the purchase, how many customers are purchasing? So from analyzing the response to your company's offering, you're able to understand what you do well, what you do better, how can you improve. And like I mentioned, the A/B testing, the multi-arm bandits, those kinds of algorithms allow you to run simultaneously 2, 3 versions of your service offering to understand which might be better for your market.
Okay, thank you.
Rebecca, any questions?
Not today. It's all great information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky,
I
Yeah.
have one question, Mia. When Sean started our AI journey a few weeks ago, he talked about when you're in GPT, you should probably have a private account and not just. No one had ever explained that to us before, so there were many people in the room that were using GPT, but not understanding that we probably should have an account. What is your thought about that. So we can use Margie as an example. If she went in and said, okay, I'd like you to give me an analysis of every chamber in Montgomery County or in Maryland, and I want to know the revenues they bring in. I want to know their membership. I want to know how long they've been around. I want to know who's running it. Every question she can possibly think to ask. Should she do this by not logging into an account, or should she have an account? And why is it important to have an account?
Okay. So one of the biggest advantages of having an account is that the language model then has your context, right? So then, because it keeps a memory of your conversations, and internally it has a knowledge graph of, what you've talked about and the connections between those knowledge pieces. So that is one reason to have an account. In terms of privacy, everything that you send to the language model, like a chat GPT that is running not private to your organization, but as a public service, is then used for further training that model. So that comes into the public sphere in that sense. So for the example that you stated, where, for example, Margie were to ask about all the other chambers in the industry and, what to look at, there is no privacy concern there or at the outset, because most likely it is going to use publicly available data about the other chambers. But in terms of unique analysis, you may have an idea, which then you want to use public data to think through, but that you may not want that idea at a very early stage to be referenced publicly, right? But also, if you're having conversations about your health, for instance, you may ask, these are my parameters, what is something about your health or something that's private to you. You may not want to send that, to a language model. So there was a case where a question was asked to ChatGPT and it responded, and in that response, there were some snippets from a New York Times article, but that article was actually behind a paywall, right? But then because someone asked at some point would have used in that training, and it went into the training data, it then became public information. So there are various ways in which data that you send to the language model then comes into the public sphere.
Right. I guess you just have to think about that when you're asking questions and make
Yeah.
sure that if you don't want to publicize broadly and give this information out, you just need to keep it close, right? And
Correct.
not do it. Yeah. Okay.
And organizationally, people that deal with a lot of sensitive data may then choose to have a locally hosted language model rather than sending it to a ChatGPT like model through API.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much. And we'll see you next Friday on May 30th for AI for marketing and sales growth. So I wish everyone a happy Memorial Day weekend. Mia, have a safe trip coming back, and we'll see everyone next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.